Why do growth strategies fail, even when you're hitting every metric, executing flawlessly, and working harder than ever? Most leaders say culture matters, but they still treat it as something soft.
Your team generally have really good ideas to create the culture that allows those ideas to come through. You're a supplier to the business. You could easily be removed. Your business work with your client is intermittent and it's very price driven, price sensitive, price focused.
Here's a question for leaders navigating organizational change. Why do growth strategies fail, even when you're hitting every metric, executing flawlessly, and working harder than ever? Most leaders say culture matters, but they still treat it as something soft, separate from commercial outcomes. And today's conversation challenges that assumption entirely. You are going to discover why revenue stalls not because of market conditions or lack of effort, but because of the invisible architecture that wasn't designed to scale. So, what is it? Well, you're going to find out, and you're going to hear some really great real world examples, including a near loss of a multi-million pound or dollar account despite hitting every KPI. And you're going to learn to recognize the early warning signs before they become costly mistakes. Because who we have here today is a really special guest, Rebecca Jenkins. Rebecca is a revenue architect and former FTSE 250 sales director who helps CEOs and leadership teams design revenue that actually scales. And she has built and sold a 55 million pound business, which is nearly 74 million in US dollars, by the way. She's led complex enterprise growth across logistics, technology, professional services, and is known for connecting trust, culture, and leadership behavior directly to commercial outcomes. Rebecca challenges the idea that culture is soft and shows instead how it becomes the operating system for resilient teams, for confident clients, sustainable growth. And she just is a delight to talk with. I was on her podcast and I was so impressed. I had to have her on my podcast. So, introducing Rebecca Jenkins. So glad to have you on.
Mira, thank you so much, but you were equally, if not more so impressive. We love having you as our guest. Thank you
All right,
so
we're just
much.
going to keep swapping back and forth then, right? Okay, so let's start with the most interesting personal experience that you had, which is you nearly lost a multi-million pound account despite hitting every single KPI. And it changed how you think about how you work with clients and the things that you work with clients now today. So walk us through like what happened and what did you learn from that experience?
Oh, Mira, I remember it so clearly. We'd won this most amazing account. It was the account that every UK logistics company wanted to earn or win. And it was with that amazing retailer, The Body Shop, at the time, led by the late Dame Manita Roddick, who was a
Wow.
pioneer at the time. And I wanted to win that account, but all the big competitors, much bigger than my business, were going after it. But we won it. And all the competitors were
Amazing.
saying, "Oh, it will never work out. They're a small business. You've made a bad choice, The Body Shop." And first year in, this was a 5-year deal. First year in, we got them through Christmas, but they were growing at such a rapid pace. It was a very hectic time. And in January, we were going to the head office in Littlehampton on the coast to meet the team, the directors, and take them through our amazing performance because we had hit every single key performance indicator.
And let me ask you, what was your role when you were first hired? What was your role at that time?
I was MD
Okay.
and MD
Hmm.
of the business, and we had a team that we won this amazing account, and we were also excited to have won it. We went in to the meeting room to meet the supply chain director and who we knew well. And we were all thinking we were going to get this massive pat on the back because we'd done such a brilliant job. And I felt the tension in the room. I thought, "Oh, he's having a bad day. When we show him these figures, he's going to be so excited." And we went through the figures and he was, yeah, you've done a good job. Okay. But then he stung us with, but you're boring. And
You're
I thought,
boring.
yeah, what do you mean we're boring when we've just done this amazing delivery for you and pulled out all the stops? And now you're telling me we're boring. What do you mean? And he just looked at me, he just paused and he said, I can't explain it. I don't know, but I'm giving you 2 weeks to sort it out and come back to me. And I said something like, but hey, we've got a 5-year commitment here. And he said, that doesn't come into play. If you can't sort this out, then we're going to have to find an alternative provider. Mira, I had no idea what he meant. What was he
Mhm.
trying to say? Tell me. I didn't know what to do. It was a long drive back to base. And I thought, I have no answers here. I don't know. And at that time, as a leader, I thought I had to have all the answers. That was another learning.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
very open with my team and say, I don't know what to do. Let's talk it through. And we had 2 weeks. So we spent lots of time kind of brainstorming and thinking what it was. And we were asking the wrong question, Mira. We kept saying, what do we have to do to be a better distribution provider to the body shop? And completely the wrong question, because we were saying more depots, more trucks, more this, more that. But the thing that we should have asked, and when the penny eventually dropped, it was, how do we become a better strategic partner to the body shop? And we started to think about what was important to them. And that was the turning point, because what was important to the body shop at that time, still is today, but even more so then, was the environment. And here we were with a fleet of trucks that weren't environmentally sound.
Mm.
And we said, that's what we've got to do. We've got to align to their strategic goals.
Let me ask before you keep going, how did you come to that realization from you're boring to clearly we need to be strategic advisors?
We didn't know if we'd made that leap correctly. We made it internally.
Okay.
And I think it was a member of the team that just sort of said, oh, hey, let's think about this, what the body shop want. It wasn't even my idea. It was a team member's idea. So fantastic. Another learning. They have
Mhm.
better ideas.
Mhm.
And then we thought, well, perhaps we have to create a very environmentally sound truck to do their deliveries as a one-off maybe, or create a whole fleet of them. And that's the idea we took to Body Shop, and we said, you think we're boring, but hey, this is the idea that we've got. We don't know how we're going to do it. We don't even know if it's possible. Do you like the idea? And guess what?
They like the
They
idea.
loved it. They
Mm.
didn't like it, they loved it.
Mm. What I heard from this also was you didn't just say like we're going to be a strategic advisor. Like we're just going to switch our hat, right? There was something about paying attention to the question, what do they need? What do they want? What are they seeking? That was the sort of, it sounds like that was the catalyst to help you think more kind of creatively around what you're delivering. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was two things. It was thinking strategically about what are they trying to do? What do they stand for? What's important to them? And how could we help them get there faster? How could we support them to achieve that? But how could we do it in a way that was creative, different, outside the box thinking, that would appeal to
Mm.
them and
Mhm.
not be a bit boring?
Yeah. You mentioned like that was a lesson learned, that was a lesson learned. What were the insights that you've extracted from that experience that you now think about when you're working with other companies or helping other companies think about these kinds of things?
Well, I think number one, your team generally have really good ideas. So create the culture that allows those ideas to come through and
Mhm.
make it safe,
Mhm.
those ideas. And also, when you're thinking about your clients or your prospects, don't just think about the operational side. Think about what is it they're trying to achieve strategically. Take the time to get the insights. Don't just think about that company, but think about the sector that they're in. Think about what their end user is looking for. think about what their competitors are doing, and build up this rich picture of what does it really mean to work with this business, and what is it that we've got that could help them to get there faster, not just more trucks on the road or making more widgets or whatever it might be, but really step inside that organization and get to know it inside out as much as you can to present something different to them. That
Yeah.
takes you partnership level.
Yeah. Yeah. Shifting your mindset from I'm a service provider, just delivering a service to I'm a strategic partner helping this business become as great as we can help this business become.
Yeah, well put. It's exactly that. If we are seen as a provider where it's easy for them to part company with us, to be replaced, we're not embedded in their business at all. We don't add value to them strategically. We're dispensable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you move it up to being you add value to the business, you're a partner, you're co creating the future together, you're planning together, working together. It's a different, well, it's not about doing more, better KPIs or better service necessarily. It's about becoming a strategic partner embedded in their business.
And I bet that most businesses deeply appreciate that because it is hard to lead a business and to grow a business and to succeed, and it's lonely and you make scary decisions and feeling like you have additional strategic partners that can help you get there and that can see something you don't or can identify a trend that could, help you expand your potential opportunities is very valuable.
Yeah, if you think about a client recently where they having a quarterly business review with their clients, and we just stopped and they went through my partnership assessment. So, do they think they're transactional, or where of those kind of in those 5 steps are they, or are they transformational to provider to that company? And they did the assessment and they said, well, we're definitely not at the top end. We're not transactional. Maybe we're collaborative. Maybe we're not sure. And then it just changes the thinking to, well, what is it we need to do to become transformational? And it just changes the thinking. It's more strategic. It's more critical thinking. It's looking at what's possible. What could we achieve? What could we do together? And then have that discussion with the client.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a 5 step process from transactional to transformational. Before we get to that, let's come back to soft skills, right? How do you make the connection between culture and revenue based on experience that you had, as well as like your own personal growth trajectory? I mean, you built and sold, a 55 million pound business. You led enterprise growth across many industries. What is that connection between cultures, slash soft skills and revenue that you see that connects to moving from vendor transactional to transformational in that role?
Yeah, if we think about revenue, it's quite kind of a hard thing, isn't it? It's a hard number. Are you
Yeah.
growing your revenue? But I don't see how we can grow revenue without the people who are helping to deliver on that revenue. So I don't just mean the sales team, I mean everybody in the business. So are the relationships strong with clients? Are we taking time out to be creative with clients? Are we supporting them in their challenges? Do we have this culture in the business that allows the time for that to happen? Or are we just focused on sell more, more, more? And so it's joining the dots between building those relationships, particularly in B2B, with those prospects and with the clients, and enabling the team to be in a culture where they are able to come up with new ideas. They're supported with generating new ideas that will be invaluable to the client. Are they supported in that? Are they allowed to give time to that? And have they got the emotional intelligence skills? Are they empathetic? Can they build rapport? And without those, you're not going to have a successful partnership. You just can't have a partnership without the ability to build those relationships, build empathy and trust, build trust, the skill of building trust. You just can't reach it without those soft skills. So it's helping leaders to join the dots between the two. If you've got a culture in your business that sees these things as being important, then it will also be important to your clients. I think clients can tell if your culture doesn't embrace these things because they get parts of it. They can sense it. They feel it, and culture really does have to support that.
So yeah, let's put it into the context of your 5-stage framework and get some examples in there for, like, what it looks like as people move from that more transactional experience where people could tell you don't have the kind of culture that feels like it enhances, trust and psychological safety and creativity and positive outcomes that affect revenue, all the way up to the transformational and what that looks like. So let's start with, like, the first stage. That's the most transactional. Is that right?
Yeah, stage one is transactional. You're a supplier to the business. You could easily be removed. Your business work with your client is intermittent and it's very price driven, price sensitive, price focused. And the remit is the sales teams just sell more, more, more. And then
Mhm.
we go from that to developmental, where you're working a little bit more with the client. You're also thinking about building the relationship. You're understanding the client a little bit more. From there, we go to consultative, where you're taking a little bit more of an initiative. You've got some insights now. You're working a little bit more with the client. You're leading them a little bit more rather than just trying to like push a sale on them. Like you're taking a little bit more time to understand their business. You're consulting with them on, say, new products or new services that you've got to offer. And from there, we go to collaborative. This is where you're beginning to work together. You might be planning things together for the future, maybe having some access to their forecasts or their volume that they're predicting for the future. And you're working collaboratively with them to address that and work with them. When you get to creating the future together, when you become transformational with them, this is when you are working on big projects together. You are co creating the future. You're a trusted partner in their business. They don't want competitors. They are focusing on you, you adding strategic value. You've made the shift from just providing products to strategically supporting them, co creating the future, working together on significant projects of theirs. So maybe I could just share a quick example here, Mira.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. Mhm.
This is a global tech business, and the remit was to support them on their key accounts and to grow them beyond expectations. And we had some tougher accounts in there, which were perceived not to have any growth at all, any growth potential. There was one particular account that had a contract with a global drinks business, and the tech business was just providing more service to them. So we thought strategically and we looked at what this drinks company was trying to achieve. And we found that what they wanted to do was cement the relationship between the purchaser that buys the product and them, and not with the supermarket. So if we were buying some drinks, we might associate that with the supermarket that we buy it from, and the relationship is with the supermarket. They wanted to circumvent that, and they wanted the relationship between the manufacturer and the person that's buying the drink. So the tech company took that on board and thought creatively about how could we do that? How could we help this global drinks manufacturer through our technology, through our service, make that connection? And they presented that idea to one of the senior directors in this global drinks company. And he said, we'd love to work with you on this, and we're going to sponsor you through this project. Now, the project may not have come to anything. It did, but it may not have. The point is that you're going to work on it together. And in that, you're going to cement the relationship and you're going to see potential for growth that you might not have previously seen because you were focusing on sell more, 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 not how can we work with you to achieve something that's different that cements our future with you.
Yeah, yeah. It's a clear example of increasing your value to your client, right? And or sponsor. And sounds like a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, everybody benefits from this. And, today we're not so hung up about failure. We see failure as learning, thankfully. It hasn't always been the case, has it? So, if that failed, both parties would have learned something from it, but the relationship would have been stronger as a result. And they would have said, well, what do we need to change? What do we need to improve to still get to that end goal? It's learning together, it's co creating together, it's working together. It's the best way to work. And when we did this with the body shop, when we retained that account for over 15 years, and it was a prestigious account, and I know competitors were knocking on Body Shop's door saying, you need to come to us. We've got something better to offer. And that's what it does. It puts you in a much stronger position. Growing it with your clients and becoming a partner with them is such a solid way to grow your business.
Yeah. So some of these examples are in the manufacturing world, but if for those of you who are listening out there who are in very, very different world, here's what I'm picking up. And Rebecca, you can kind of correct me if I get some of this wrong. But for example, let's take a doctor, right? If you go to a doctor and they spend 15 minutes with you based on the billable, 15-minute hour or whatever, and they listen to your surface level symptoms and give you some medication and send you on your way. Okay, fine. I may or may never go to that doctor again. It depends on, how I felt about it. But if you're thinking the other end of this continuum, and I will share like a personal experience, I had, a medical issue that like I went to multiple doctors. I felt not listened to. I felt like they didn't get it or they weren't attending to the thing that I was saying, even though I was saying the same thing every time to each person. But this one doctor spent time actually listening to the thing I really cared most about. And then he extracted that and said, it sounds like this is the thing that you want most to attend to. And here's a way to get, us started. And I literally feel like that is now my new best friend because he attended to me and he heard what I actually was looking for, and he wasn't just looking for surface level issues that he could attend to, but also, like, what was the root cause of my concern and how to attend to that piece in a way that also enhanced my quality of life, which was more important than just solving surface level symptoms. And that's what I'm hearing in your kind of 5 stages is, are you going to solve surface level symptoms or issues, or are you gonna really get deep into how you can collaborate and support from a meaningful, significant different quality? Does that
I
sound
love your
accurate?
Yeah, I love your analogy, Mira. It's so true. Yes, because you're taking the time to really understand them and their business and also what their end users are wanting as well. So we're looking at a number of different things, creating this picture and then using our sort of intelligence, our knowledge, our creative thinking, all these soft things come together to say, how can we do a better job beyond hitting those operational standards and metrics, which of course are important, but we would expect that to be the baseline and others could do that. Other competitors could come in and do that. So how do we take it to that next level?
Yeah, and you had another really great example that I'd love for you to share, which is you worked with a law firm that where clients
Yes.
belonged to individual partners rather than the firm. I think we've seen this kind of culture before. So I'd love for you to share about that story and what it looked like initially with the transactional experience and what it could look like to turn it into something more transformational that where everybody benefits.
Yeah, it was quite surprising to me how siloed this law firm was. So conveyancing was one department and family office was another. And they didn't really seem to talk to each other that much. They might come together for a partners meeting. but everything was so siloed. And it sort of took me aback, really. But anyway, what we thought about was the figures looked good, the revenue was growing, but what were the missed opportunities in the fact that everybody was so siloed? And it's really quite significant because they had some corporate clients, but they would just do litigation for that corporate client. But the directors in that business could have had personal things that they wanted addressed. They might have had conveyancing needs. They might have had private office, family matters, things that they wanted to be discussed. But in the law firm's eyes, it was, oh, no, no, we're just doing litigation. And when we started to think about opening up the conversation to show them, well, we do these other things that might be important to you, that's where the opportunity lies. So they were inadvertently putting a ceiling on their revenue. And when you open that up and you get different teams talking and they are introducing different clients to the other, you begin to think about the business as a whole, not just the clients belonging to you. And they don't actually just belong to that solicitor. They belong to the company. And that's the shift in thinking that's needed
Hmm.
when law firms operate very much today still in that kind of siloed arena. Just think about the opportunities that they're missing.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
that's
right. And so what does it take? What kind of mindset shift, what kind of skills does it take to move a company like that who starts off siloed and transactional to get them all the way to the other end of the spectrum of transformational? Like, what would they need to do to support their team members and their leaders to get there?
I think they've got to have a clear kind of goal, a clear vision that they want to achieve this. So that means the leader has to be open minded to this and open to considering this as a way forward, because they may still be themselves very stuck in this groove of, we've got a siloed business going on here, and not want to take the kind of wider vision. So it does start with the leaders thinking that through about what the opportunity might look like and encouraging them to adopt a growth mindset where they'll see opportunities, accept it's going to be challenging, but actually being prepared to kind of walk through that and embrace that and support their team on that journey to make it happen. And in that there's going to be difficulties along the way. So it does start with the leadership team being ready to embrace that kind of approach. And then I think it's around having the culture that supports it. So encouraging teams to spend time across different functions, learning about the business, sharing customers, working together, going to visit customers together, bringing different functions to the client. But one, the leaders having that kind of growth mindset and willingness to do it. If they don't have the willingness to do it, Mira, it's never going to happen, as I'm sure you will have experienced and will have seen. It
Yeah.
starts, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And some of this is a fear that if I take my eyes off of revenue and put them on culture or soft skills or, however you want to sort of define it, that we will lose revenue. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
But they need to have a system in place that gives them the confidence that what they're doing is going to grow their revenue. So very often they don't have that system in place, and that's what I help them to do. So they've got the structure and they can see the numbers because they generally like the hard thing. So they can see the numbers, they can see how all of that fits together. And then we layer that with the people. So how are the people going to develop their skills, their relationship, their opportunities with prospects? How do all those soft skills come together? Because it can't just be delivered by the numbers alone, but they see the numbers, it gives them confidence. And then we layer onto that the skills of the individuals and showing the individuals what they are expected to deliver so they own it. And not just say, yes, we'll do it. It's so important that they own it. They don't just take responsibility for it. They will take the initiative, really own it, and work through what needs to be done to make it happen. So have a willingness to do it, adopt a growth mindset, see the numbers, see the system, build the system out, and then spend time with the team so they own what's got to be achieved. And that's also a big shift, going from just I'm responsible for it to I'm actually going to own this and I'm going to, make sure it happens. I'm going to do what it takes to make sure it happens. That's part of culture as well, isn't it? Wanting
Yeah.
to have that environment where if I make a mistake, it's okay to say I've made a mistake. I'll learn from it. If that looks challenging, okay. There's support because it's going to be challenging, but I know my leader is going to support me through that challenge.
Yeah. What's so interesting is you would think, okay, if I set up metrics about our revenue goals, or any goals really, if I set up metrics and then I review those metrics with you every time, and we're looking at progress tracking and that kind of thing, you would think, okay, we're going to meet those metrics. But the reality is when you work with people, people are more complicated than that, and they need more than you just looking at their
Yes.
numbers, right? Like,
Yes.
it's not that motivating to just look at
No.
somebody's numbers and say, "Well, you're on track or you're not on track." That's not why people, like, continue working at the same place,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I'm hearing you talk about is what will it take to actually get people to own something, especially when it's leaning into discomfort, cross-functional things they're not familiar with, they're scary, or that are like in competition, supposedly with their colleagues. What does it take? And it is more of that, like, what motivates people to feel excited to own something, to get them more engaged in the thing. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts or stories around that piece.
Yeah. First of all, it's like setting out that vision and sharing that with everybody and asking them for their contribution towards it. And then allowing them to build their vision for their function that
Mm.
aligns with the overall vision for the business. It's got to come from them. So we're giving them a steer, we're giving them the strategy, we're giving where we're going, the sense of direction, the North Star, all of those things. But then it's down to your division that you own it. What's your plan? What are your thoughts? How are you going to make this happen? And then bring that together with everybody in the business to share that and talk it through. So you kind of set out the framework and guide them and support them and help them and be empathetic to it's change and that's difficult and just make it comfortable so they understand that there is a leader on their side, a leader willing to support them, a leader who's creating the environment for these things to happen, for that learning to take place. It's okay if we mess up. We'll learn from the mess up. Experiments, not all experiments will work out. That's fine. So setting that culture, but getting them to co-create it with you.
Yeah.
It cannot.
Yeah. And this reminds me of the initial story that you shared, with, you bringing this challenge that happened to you, to your team, and trying to sort of extract the very best of their ideas to see, what can we do together? And that made a difference.
Well, I felt very vulnerable there, Mira, because
Yeah.
as I said earlier, thought I should know what to do, and I did not have a clue. And here we were with our biggest contract on the verge of losing it. That would have a massive impact on the business, the people, the team. And I felt quite burdened with that. But, the team saved the day. And I think that's a lesson that our team have better ideas, can have better ideas. But if we don't allow the environment for them to share them, or they've shared them in the past and they've been rubbish, they're not going to come forward with new ideas again in the future. They're scarred.
Yeah.
And we
That's right.
have to peel that away and say, I really do care. I want to hear. You probably have a much better idea than me. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I totally agree. Number one, as a leader, yeah, we often start off with thinking we have to have all the answers, like you said, and it all falls on me, and it's very burdensome and it's scary, and these people are leaning on me. And the reality is that number one, you don't have to be alone in it. And number two, the single hero model is so outdated. Ideas come from teams. Ideas come from collaborative efforts, and why not extract the best from your team so that you could be the best, right? Like that's so, and then the flip to that is people can only be at their best when you let them, when you invite them in. And
Yeah.
that's the psychological safety piece. Like they can only share, are only willing to share their idea with you if you value that idea and you do something with it and give them the ability to take it on or take credit and turn it into something. I've had colleagues who like got really excited about ideas. They shared their ideas and were either struck down or their ideas were taken and the leader took credit for it because they were too, worried about looking like they didn't have ideas. So they had to present other people's ideas as their own. And it just creates a situation where people wanna leave. They don't wanna contribute. They disengage, and that is not a recipe for a successful company.
No, and when they leave, they take all that knowledge with them. They take all that experience of working with them, and somebody else benefits from it.
Yeah.
So creating this space where they feel valued and they bring ideas to you because you give them credit for those ideas. Not every idea is going to work, but that doesn't matter. And that's not the point. It's creating a space where they are coming forward with innovations and thoughts that might just be the one that saves a large contract or saves a large client from walking away, or potentially could even save your business and take it to the next level. We would
Yeah.
be ridiculous as leaders not to want to have that.
That's right. So let me ask you this. I have a colleague who is really looking to continue to grow her business and expand it. And she has shared like what's been helping her is going above and beyond and doing the kinds of things that you describe around trying to see what else the client needs and offer, some more services. The downside is she is worried about the stress or taxing the team with more work. And so she's worried about like, how can I balance growing the business, offering companies more without burning out my people by sort of going above and beyond? And I'm curious, how would you assess this using your framework or how you think about things? What would you sort of suggest to somebody like that?
Well, I think first of all, full credit to her for caring and thinking about her team in that way.
Yeah,
So many leaders just want to push more onto their team,
true.
but
Yes.
she's thinking about that and caring about that, and that really matters. And I think when you're trying to do more and go above and beyond, you do end up putting a little bit more pressure on your team, and all feels like it's just more and more activity. And it's good to step back from that for a moment because to become a strategic partner with a company, it's not about doing more KPIs or better KPIs. It's about thinking in a different way
Mhm.
and in conversation with the client that says, you recognize we're doing an amazing job. What is it going to take for us to become a strategic partner in your business or to have a partnership status? What might that look like? And you just start to open up that conversation from a more, I want to use the word strategic, but from a different perspective, more long term perspective. And this is a great exercise to do. So, what they could do is just map out those 5 steps to get from transactional to transformational. And I would recommend that she just thinks about, well, what would that transformational partnership look like? So we did this with a client recently, and they said, well, transformational would be they use our platform for every single booking. We have all their work. We are working on big projects with them. So those were the key 3 things that said, that means we're a partner. So she could do that. And then she could present that thinking to the client and say, could we have more of a strategic conversation, not just about the operation? We know that's good. This is what I think a partnership looks like. What does that look like for you? And where do you think we are on this trajectory from transactional to transformational? And they will mark it in a spot, and your friend would mark it, your colleague would mark it in a spot. There's a gap between the two, most likely 9 times out of 10. And that's where you start the conversation. Okay, we've got a gap. How do we close that gap? And how do we move up the ladder, as it were, to become a partner? And you've just changed the conversation completely.
Yeah,
You've given,
wow, what a bold, critical conversation with somebody you would love to keep working with and become a partner with.
yeah, you just open up that conversation. And if the person you're speaking to aren't ready for it, go and find somebody else in the business who might be ready for it. It's about building those relationships deep and wide in an organization. You know, when I do this, Mira, just quickly, when I do this exercise with companies, they say, "Oh, there's no growth potential on this account." And I say, "Well, have you spoken to the CEO? Does that CEO not want to grow the business?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course they do." So there's growth opportunity in there somewhere for you. We've just got to find out how to make it happen.
Brilliant, brilliant. You know who you're making me think of, and he's gonna laugh because this is my podcast producer who's gonna listen to this. And, I hope he gives himself a pat on the back here. When I connected with him, he specifically said early on, "I love your work. Here's what I love about it. Here's where I think I could bring it. And I'm not looking for a short-term relationship. I really want a long-term partnership." Like he said it all. And now
Brilliant.
here you are saying that's what you should be doing. I am so impressed now, even more impressed than I already am impressed with him.
Yeah. Amazing. That longer term thinking. And well, you're still working with him
Yeah.
and it shows, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely, absolutely. So, for leaders
mm.
who are listening and still early on this sort of like model, right? Or they're like early in their growth of their business. What could they start putting in place to build a really strong foundation around some of these concepts?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like them to sort of think about the system. What is the system you have in place to grow revenue? Or are you just depending that and hoping that the sales team will be good? Because I think we've got to shift away from that
Mhm.
good sales team, but what's the infrastructure? What's the system you've got to support your growth? And so you can look at the numbers and you do have the confidence that if you're doing, for example, 200 outreaches a month to your target accounts or your target prospects, and you're seeing this return, your conversion ratio is X, you're going to be in a stronger place to hit your numbers. But what's the infrastructure around that to make that happen? And how are you developing the soft skills in your business to support that and make it happen? Because if it's in a hard culture where people aren't respected or valued, you're just not going to get where you need to be. It's so making sure you've got the system and the infrastructure in place to make that happen. And I would also recommend just having that conversation, as we've just outlined, with a couple of clients and make an assessment. Why do they see you? And is there growth there? It's a very easy conversation to have. It's a fun conversation. And I'd recommend doing those two things. Have you got the system in place to make it happen, to make it predictable, and find out from your clients how they see you?
Yeah. If leaders find this overwhelming or really heavy to take on, how might they start with maybe one small thing? What is one small thing they might start with if they're overwhelmed with this idea of this shift?
Yeah. One small thing, just give yourself a bit of time to do some reflection on what are the challenges you're facing in the business.
Mm.
There's psychological things show up before the numbers. So, do the team feel micromanaged? Are your team leaving? Are your team happy? Are your clients complaining? Are they leaving? What are the kind of key things in the business that you feel need changing? And start with those. But just give yourself that time. I know everybody is so ridiculously busy these days, but just take that time out to reflect. And if you've got a solid sounding board, a person that you could talk that through with confidence, confidentially, then do it and get their opinion. So that's put a couple of hours in your diary. to do that. Step back, think, what are the challenges that I'm facing in the business?
I like those early key areas of, am I noticing people leaving? Am I noticing people disengaging? Am I noticing people feeling frustrated? Am I noticing myself micromanaging and I don't want to micromanage, right? So, what are you noticing are like friction points, tension points, things that exhaust or annoy? And what could those mean? What are those early indicators of?
Another classic one, Mira, is everybody coming to you to make the decision. At the end of
Yes.
the day, you've got like 101 decisions because nobody else is owning anything and they're not making decisions. It all comes to you. It all lands at your door. I mean, that's such a drain.
Yeah. Tell me more about this because you mentioned ownership for, a couple of times. And I know that you have a perspective on what ownership is as compared to, let's say, responsibility or accountability. What is true ownership within like a really strong transformational type company from your perspective?
Yeah, and ownership would be I take the initiative on this. I am responsible for the whole thing from the start to the end, and I am going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. I accept there are going to be challenges along the way, but I'll own those, I'll work through those, and I will make sure that I deliver on it. I take that initiative. I will just make sure I do it. I own it like it's my own business. I will see it through. I will think about how it can be improved, how it could be better. Whereas if I'm just responsible for something, then I will just do what's needed to be done. I don't think through that whole picture. I don't think through the implications of it. I don't think through how it's going to impact other people in the team. I don't think about impact cash flow or the finances or how somebody else might feel about this. Ownership, you think through all of those things. So you've got critical thinking skills. You're able to think ahead. You show initiative. You own it.
Yeah. I love that distinction. Again, I think back to, when have I been most successful? If you all, if you're listening, if you can reflect on this, when have I been most successful and most satisfied? It's when you feel like you could actually take ownership for something and take pride in the outcome. And
Yeah.
when has it felt the worst? Well, it's probably when someone stepped in and micromanaged what you thought you owned and ended up realizing that you actually don't own it, or they never let go fully, right? I've had experiences where I've had great supervisors who have given me a vision and said, now you take it and figure out how to do it in your own way. Very empowering, right? I've had other supervisors who have said, "Well, I don't like this and I don't like this and I don't like this and you can't do this and you can't do this and you can't do this," and like really getting into the details. And what result has that had on me? Well, I just say, "If you want to own it, you could own it. I'm not interested anymore." Right? I
Yeah.
completely lose interest in the thing that I may have originally wanted a part of because it was very disempowering as compared to empowering in the first example, right?
Yeah. It kind of cuts you down, doesn't it? And you think, well, why bother? And then I've got this great idea for something, oh, but they're not going to listen to it, or their idea is going to be better. Oh, kind of give
Yeah,
up, move on, isn't it?
that's right. That's right. Okay, so if I'm going to close this out because I'm looking at the time and we could probably go on, but if people want to learn more about your work and learn more about how to work with you or the things that the services that you offer, where can they go?
Yeah, just go to find me on LinkedIn, or they could go to my website, which is rjen.co.uk here in the UK. And if anybody would like to have that kind of partnership from transactional to partnership kind of map, then they want to have that conversation with their customer or client about that, just drop me an email, which is Rebecca, Rebecca, at rjen.co.uk. And I'm happy to, I'd be delighted to share that with you and maybe just share a couple of tips along the way and how you might set that up. but I can assure you it will be a very worthwhile conversation to have.
I will attest to that. Rebecca is just lovely to talk with and learn from, and clearly a wealth of knowledge. So, audience, what did you take away from this time together with Rebecca? And more importantly, what is one small change that you can implement as a leader this week based on what you learned? And share it with us on LinkedIn. Now you know she's on LinkedIn. I live there too. And if you enjoyed this episode, my love language is referrals, recommendations, and nice reviews. So you can leave a review of the hard skills on your favorite podcast platform or my new YouTube channel, Dr. Mira Brancu, Dr. Mira Brancu. If you're looking for more personalized support around leadership or team coaching, you could go to gotowerscope.com to schedule a consultation. And together, we will navigate the complexities of leadership and emerge stronger on the other side. Thank you for joining me and Rebecca Jenkins today on this journey. This is Dr. Mira Brancu signing off. And until next time, stay steady, stay present, and keep building those hard skills muscles that she just described. All right? Take care, everybody.